All right, party people, welcome back. Welcome back, Rebel Souls, Dark Wizards, Witches, and everybody in between. Thank you guys for joining us for this. We're going to call it part 2 and 3 or part 2A and 2B. I had to rhyme. I just been thinking a lot of rhymes recently. We're going to get ourselves right into the next two important sections of this no contact narcissist. Say it. I'm waiting for you guys to catch on to this. Like, we're gonna transition from course to healing session. And once you guys catch on to that, I believe that these are going to be a lot easier to not only endure, because I was listening to the first part yet last night and I'm like, damn, this is low key, this is low key a lot. But I promise you, it's all worth it. I understand it's a lot of information and it's heavy information too. So you may have to break up even that portion into a handful of parts just to be able to digest it yourself. But I'm releasing it because this is, again, you can call it schizophrenia, or you can call it a channel message, but it's just a calling to release this information to the universe and to my people, especially. It's I don't believe it's greed, honestly. I definitely believe it's just coming up from like a poverty mindset, but it's not realizing that the gift that I have in my mind needs to be of access, of available access to as many people as possible, especially those who are seeking this type of knowledge, because it is pretty niche for the world that we live in. Not that narcissism is niche, but deciding to address narcissism in your life and transform the life that you're living to be on the other side of that type of abuse takes a lot of transformation. And usually all the bits and pieces of information you can get are found in so many different corners of the world or the internet. It can be very overwhelming to try to pursue that. But hopefully, through all the wandering that I've done, we can bring ourselves to a decent foundation to where you can start stacking bricks on top of and deciding, not only deciding, but creating the life that you want to live and fully participate in. So hopefully that sounds good to you. Again, because I'm recording this on a different day, that means we're going to do another promo because this is a different day. So go ahead and check out Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls .shop if you'd like to check out some of the gear that we got going there. It's always fresh, it's always cool. And if you're hot, you're probably going to look a little bit hotter in it. If you're not, you're probably going to look hot in it. So I think that's a double win for you, me, and whoever else is involved. I guess that makes us three. But I'm excited to get into this episode today because, again, I sorry for that if that alarm was blaring. I want to remind you that I'm not claiming to be a healer in the sense that you are exchanging me money or exchanging me something like a value to sit here and have an expectation that your whole entire life will be transformed after you hear these words or after you participate in this type of session. And I want you to realize I'm I can only bring you as far to the door that is your own soul and that is your own self. Everything beyond there, you have to take responsibility for discovering and digging out of yourself. But for everything that is this collective reality that we're engaging in together, that's the information that I'm seeking. And that's what I can give you to help you when you're ready to take responsibility for digging in that darkness if you've abandoned it. But if you haven't abandoned yourself, then it's just digging into your own depth and then presenting that into a reality, which may or may not want to support you in doing that. But this is me telling you, I'm genuinely telling you, you have to live a life on the other side of pursuing and actualizing and giving yourself to what you love. And hopefully having the discernment with what you love to be able to give to what can reciprocate back to you and what also can feed you healthy energy so you're not dependent on these little like lingering conditional coping mechanisms and forms of salvation that people are handing out. It's a multi-step process. It's not going to take one weekend. It's not going to take one session or just a handful of videos, just binging them in a row to be able to really feel the benefits of this. It's figuring out what you can control, the specific aspects of your life that you can control and you can change and take responsibility for, not only responsibility, but commit to changing. That's going to allow you to see the greatest change in your life. I'm telling you right now, it's We live in this social media era that we live in. We want so much of a change or so much of a result, but we don't think that it's going to require so much or even greater of an investment. And I want us to really start retracting ourselves back into reality and realizing for anything that we want, we have to be willing to sacrifice. We have to be willing to give ourselves fully to it and surrendering to whatever process is necessary for us to access that. Keeping us humble, keeping us committed, keeping us intentional with where we're putting our energy. So we don't have to be pointing the finger at other people, at other things, or at a reality that we believe doesn't like us or hates us. We can take responsibility for what we can control, and we can allow the world around us to complement our intention, complement our investment, complement our awareness, and even collaborate with at times. But remember, before we even get into this, we when we remember that we aren't just the body, we are the awareness. We are the observer of the emotions that we feel, not just at the mercy of the emotions we feel. We give ourselves an opportunity of leveraging those to then create the reality that we want, rather than being forced to live in a reality that is at the mercy of the emotions that we refuse to be aware of and take responsibility for. I hope that's a good enough intro for you guys to get into this video. Only other thing I got to say is if you like what we got going here, like, comment, subscribe, share it to your friends, send it to a narcissist, or send it to somebody that you hate, and tell them to follow me on Instagram if they want to have. Let's get into it right now. All right. Welcome to the escape section. The reason why I decided to subtitle this "The Straw That Broke the Camel's Back." I hope that's how you can spell camel. That might just be the way you spell. Actually, I'm tripping. The reason why I decided to subtitle this with that specifically is because we discussed this earlier in part one, but you're probably in loops, in cycles of toxicity when you're engaging with a narcissist, because remember, they have to make sure that you're emotionally dysregulated. So the only buoy or life vest, lifeboat that you have is them, even though they are what's literally creating the tsunami or destroying the water. And because you probably either were already vulnerable, you had low self-esteem, you didn't have proper boundaries or self-awareness before engaging in a situation like this. Mind you, we're not blaming you, because these people are predators. At the end of the day, even if it's not preying on children, they're preying on the vulnerable, preying on the weak. So we want to make sure that you understand you don't just wake up after you endure some ridiculous trauma or you endure a handful of abuse and you say, okay, I'm going to change. Like, it's going to take time for a lot of us, because for many of us, we still believe in the goodness or the love bombing that the narcissist was showing us. And because of our belief in that, we give them the benefit of the doubt, and we decide to we sacrifice ourselves and our well-being to allow them longevity in hopes of them presenting that self or that being to us. So we can hopefully be right that they are this person that we're waiting for, that we're hoping that they are. Instead of just allowing them to be who they are, that not being somebody that we want to be around, and then letting them go and find somebody who's willing to put up with that. Whether it's our fear of loneliness, whether it's which we'll get into all of this as we get further into the slides, but ask yourself, especially if you're doing shadow work, what is it going to take? What is it going to take before it takes your life? I think that's a beautiful question to journal about. How much is it going to take? And also a secondary question to add to that. If you're going to allow somebody else to run you down that much, or some group of people to run you down that much, and they aren't reciprocating any type of energy to allow you to invest in yourself or to allow you to actualize yourself, imagine if you pivoted that energy and only gave it to yourself, or created a foundation where you allowed yourself to have that energy and then you reciprocated with other people who were also selfless enough to share with you. Like, imagine how much different your life would be when you're not giving 100% of yourself for 1% of somebody else. Not even 1%, the hope of 1% of somebody else. So understand we're probably like so deep into this trauma or this abuse at this point that this whatever the experience is that tells you like I have to leave, I have to get out of here. You have to realize that once that comes in your brain, it's probably never going to leave. Like it doesn't matter how much love bombing comes after that, that will forever stay in your brain. And the scary thing is that many people shut that voice out and when they shut it out, they end up becoming a victim of the person that they're in a relationship with or the family that has claimed them. This is why we talk so much about the self, the being, the body being the medium between the inner world and the outer world. Because if the outer world, as society has been monopolized, has been claimed by people who are reinforcing this cult mentality, this cult society, you still have an opportunity to revert within and to understand what your values are and to leverage that to navigate yourself through that society to find people who do want to reciprocate with you, who do want to love and care about you with the depth that you have for people in this world, but people don't want to respect for you or reciprocate back to you. Okay. This is, and again, another title that basically reinforces what we're talking about, Breaking Point. Nothing to do with the this is not a promo for whatever that YouTube political thing is. This is just a Dark Wizard title. More times than not, it's very difficult to leave the narcissist because at the time where you even want to leave, you've abandoned or blown up so many relationships and so many opportunities that you could have had to leave. So many runaway trains have already taken themselves away from your dock or whatever your stop is that it almost seems more convenient to stay in relationship in the small infantilized life that has been created for you with the narcissist than it is to actually walk away from that and stand on your own 2 feet. Because mind you, you're not, more times than not, you're not walking out to just somebody else who cares for you. Because those people are made sure to be cut off and pushed off from you while you're being supply for the narcissist. We the only and again do an assessment on the life that you're living, but the only relationships that you're allowed to have are either ones that indirectly triangulate validation through to the narcissist through you existing and maintaining the responsibility of the relationship, or are leveraged to participate in gaslighting and smear campaigning upon you when you start rejecting the cult psychosis of whether it's a family or the community. So it's very, and this is something that I realized as who had to go through this process and really question the relationships that I was holding in the life that I was living, because it was, I realized that I was so codependent and I was clinging so hard onto just relationships that weren't really giving me anything. That were just like kind of there because, and this is no disrespect to anybody that I had a relationship with, but it's because I was raised to be codependent because there was no point, there was no expectation of me ever being able to be independent enough to leave that relationship or to leave that house. But I did because I knew I had to be independent, but I was still energetically and emotionally very codependent, like an arm ripped off a body, still looking for like a host. And okay, that's a very horrible analogy. I apologize for that. But I didn't feel like a whole human being. I still was just a part of somebody else's whole body. And I had to relearn, literally to relearn the nerve connection to the rest of my body. Because I'm not just an arm, I'm a whole human being myself. You, the reason, and again, we're going to talk about the purge process during this, but you have to realize a difficult aspect about going no contact or really cutting people off from your old life is it's almost like a desire to get the validation, maybe indirectly or directly get their validation as like, oh, you've changed as a person, so now they should respect you as this person you've changed to be, rather than them now having animosity and resentment because you changed and left them behind and they didn't change. So I don't want you to get this confused as if like, oh, now you're doing better for yourself. People are going to come and just miraculously want to change and support you and love you because they're like, oh my goodness, look at this amazing person who just like left us to heal and grow. Like we should all follow suit. More times than not, that's not going to happen, bro. And we're going to keep going and explaining the consequences of deciding to make this decision because we've said this. I said this 2 or 3 times in the first part. You leaving the community, it's a lot easier to just knock somebody off or slander and smear somebody who leaves the community of people who are ignorant enough and afraid enough to maintain the psychosis than it is to awaken the truth as to what's behind the psychosis and then keep not only punishing those people, but then having to go backwards and mirror all the societies that are reflective of that same type of energy. And it's just constantly building up to breakdown rather than just get that guy out of here and let's keep this thing going. And people are afraid enough, confused enough, ignorant enough to maintain it out of convenience, not out of genuine commitment. And then if they can't just be forced to perpetuate out of convenience, it's just out of fear. Fear of either losing their life or fear of damnation. That's what most cults go to because most cults are like extremist cults. They're not just, oh, the sky is blue. Again, why did I draw such a long, turbulent, very thin line in between old life and the new life? You have to you have to realize that not only are you a snake like shedding your skin, but it is also you going within and purging out of yourself, externally shedding the skin and all the like layers of masks that were put on you, whether it was you trying to seek for validation or you trying to protect your real self to gain validation. Shedding all of that and then going within and turning a light on to all that you've suppressed and putting that out into the world, whether it was because fear of shame, fear of rejection, fear of invalidation, fear of excommunication. That's one thing that used to be a thing before social media came around and cancel culture replaced it. It is such a transformative process. This middle ground, you can most definitely won't be the same person on this side if you are as you are on this side. Your needs are going to be completely different because now you're finally looking within and discovering what accommodations that you need to live at the level that you desire to live at, not to live just to survive and exist with somebody else who has no intention of supporting you. It's so much different. And even think about things like this: when you're not in survival mode every second of the day or hyper vigilant for your life and your well-being, when you're not thinking about begging for community, begging for access to the world, but being denied access to that, it's your whole being, your whole life, your whole psyche, your whole perspective of the world changes. And where you could believe that you are a very angry person, a very angry individual, you might not actually be that. It might be you just responding energetically to the position that you've been put in your environment. And you need a transformation of environment. You need new support. You need an ability to let that, again, the internal energy out while also shedding the external shell that you've put to protect that self that you've abandoned or you have tried to endure trauma with. Without support, of course. I don't want to forget adding that. But one of the difficult things that that keeps people again, another difficult thing that keeps people attached to these old attachments, these toxic connections and relationships, is because they feel like there's, and again, going back to the diagram we've made of like how the narcissist purges a soul, or not purges, but how the narcissist corrupts a soul. But there's they believe that either there's a part of them that exists within the narcissist or exists within the validation or the wellness of the narcissist that they're connected to. Now, you guys may call that a trauma bond, which I'm pretty sure that may be the best way to describe it. You have to genuinely look at yourself in the mirror and go from sacrificing all of yourself just for the hopes of receiving crumbs of validation that you fight for every day, to then letting go of everything that you fight so hard for and you can't grasp, to feed to yourself and put yourself in a position to receive what loves and cares for you, while also having the boundaries to hold off, to hoard off the demons that want to destroy it. But it's the fear of going out into the world, of going beyond the abuse, and then realizing that you might actually be the person that the narcissist claimed that you were. And to have that validated by the greater world beyond the one that you were fighting so hard for survival in, that's scary. Imagine going from only having one person or having one family that you're connected to and isolated in that, to going out into a world full of billions and billions of people just to have nobody, and to have the existential loneliness and the existential lack of support from every angle, and probably your foundational life sabotage as well. That's why, again, I say this is not just a decision you're making, like buying a purse or buying like a new pair of shoes. This is literally every single aspect of your life will change because of this. Every single aspect of your life will change because of this. Who you are fundamentally will change because of this. You have to want to, and this is why I say when you have, if you're somebody who experiences like suicidal ideation, or somebody who has like kind of thoughts of like passive thoughts of like moving on and like deleting yourself, I'm telling you, it's, if you think that you are the body, you may think that that is, oh, this is what this feels like, I don't want to be here. But when you remember that you are the awareness, I'm telling you, it's the awareness tapping into the body, telling the body, hey, I don't want to be in this environment anymore. I don't want to starve in this body. I don't want to decay in this body when I was born to live. I was born to be connected to this human being that was blessed with taking responsibility over me. I was born to be flourishing in this life, to be expressive, to be out there. And even if it's just to the people that I'm in community with and my peers, I was born to shine through this body, and it's not happening. And I'm just keep getting beat down and rejected and abandoned and abused every single day. And I'm tired of this. And I want to get out of this body, and I want to get out of this environment. I'm telling you right now, that's what a lot of us are suffering with. And there's no hope to extend outside of it because we're already in, me, not me specifically. I don't have any type of connections, but people are in marriages. People have kids with other people. People are deeply invested in their family. People have a lot of debt. People have obligations that extend for decades, years, bro, that they can't even project their mind into, but they can project their future into. A lot of people don't have the opportunity to just drop everything and surrender to whoever they are. And I think that's also a reason why our society really wants you to make ridiculously important decisions or drastic life changing decisions the second you become an adult, while not preparing you whatsoever all the way up to becoming an adult, because they want you to trap yourself in some kind of debt scheme or some trap. If you're, because for poor people, a mistake is life threatening, and for rich people, a mistake is like opportunity producing. It's so I apologize making everything like sociological, but like it's one and the same. It's just to me, it's just all patterns of the same thing. But before we before we get into this, like the next slide, I just want to do a little bit talking about also another perspective that may hinder your ability to endure this process. Because we've talked about the comfort of your past, the comfort of your pain, and leaving your future or the potential of your future to the mercy of addicting yourself to your pain. We've talked about enduring the process and all the changes that may happen, the metamorphosis that may happen. Like really, this is a butterfly level metamorphosis. You aren't going to be the same person on the before you go into the cocoon. As you forgive me, you're not going to be the same person after you leave the cocoon as you were before you enter the cocoon. But you might not even know necessarily who you are to become on the other side of the cocoon. But if you listen to your intuition, you listen to that thing, that voice that's calling from within you, it's telling you we have to make the cocoon. We have to leave this place. We have to leave this phase of life, and we have to enter the cocoon, and we have to become the butterfly and flourish in this life. The Again, I said like a minute or two ago, one more thing that I wanted to add that may hinder this process is having expectations for this. Having expectations for your new life rather than just saying, I'm fully surrendering myself to discovering myself. Almost like an infinite being that already knows itself and is rediscovering, relearning its own gifts and its own greatness through loving myself and caring for myself. And through that, I will be able to express these unique qualities, perspectives, gifts, dreams, ideas, arts, everything. But that won't come from a position to where I'm literally being traumatized every day fighting for my survival. And my survival comes at the hand of the validation of somebody who probably can't even support themselves. No expectations for where we're trying to go. Because you got to realize if this is something that you had to endure in this life, this is damn near its own career. Enduring narcissistic abuse. This is damn near its own career. So before we move on, what is going to be the thing that makes you that pushes you on this journey? What is going to be the thing that pushes you on the journey of looking within and just letting it all go? Are you going to do this because you know you want to chase your dreams and the connections, the relationship, the family that you're a part of is holding you, hindering you from accessing that? Is it you knowing that you have to change your life because the things that you want in this life and who you want to be is a lot different than the people that you're around, your peers, and the people holding you back? Or is it because if you don't get up out that environment and get up out that shell, you're going to crash the fuck out and literally twist on people and put your life and your future at the mercy of lashing out on people who, one, don't deserve it, and two, you don't deserve it? Because why would you give your future up to people who have already taken everything from your past? That's another reason why I went no contact. And I'm not a horrible person, and I don't lash out on people at all. I'm good at internalizing my emotions. But one thing I wanted to say here is that you should never, ever, 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 especially if you're a black person or you're a woman or you're disabled or you're like a marginalized person in America, you should never, no, but mind you, this is just for, this specific thing is probably for men because of raging. Never, never release your emotions and your pain onto somebody else. The earth is a canvas for emotions, not people. All right? We collaborate, we work with, we build with, we cultivate with people to understand these emotions that we're having because we're all at the mercy of them, but we don't project them onto other people in a way that destroys their well-being. One, because we don't do that. Two, because that now sacrifices the future you could have. Now you gave up your future and the people that you came up with sacrificed your past. And now you don't get to live at all. Look at that. Because of one decision that you made when you were in a limbo, not truly ready to commit to allowing a new life to come flood in and wash away your past. but and not fully ready to let go of that past because you don't trust that a new life is coming in and could be better than what you're enduring right now. If these are things that have come across your mind and the people around you, you have to put those ideas out. This is why there's a weird thing that people say, like, don't share your dreams to anybody who's around you. Like, are you fucking stupid, bro? Like, you're not going to get them done on your own. Like, you think that people just wake up and like become rap stars? People just wake up and become celebrities on their own just one day? Like, no, you have a team of people that are all supported, literally all in some kind of cult belief, delusional belief, supporting you together, making sure that happens, thinking for you with brains that are in addition to the brain that you're already actualizing your truth with. So if the people around you in your circle reinforcing you are taking you away from accessing this, and you don't have to be a mega superstar doing rocking shows with 100 million people in the stands. I'm telling you right now, even if that dream is just to get a house, even if that dream is just to buy a car, if that dream is just to get a new job or to get a degree, why are the people around you not supporting you in doing that? Especially if it's not like, if it's actually like a good thing for you. Like, is it because they're gonna, when you access those things, when you see that you can accomplish things on your own, you're gonna see that you don't need them and they actually need you? Is it because they're gonna see, or you're gonna see that they're hindering you because they can control you better when you don't have access to winning in your own life? Put your desire to change your life in the world. Don't by not by saying it, by doing it. Transform your diet, transform your fitness routine, transform your fashion, transform your self-care and your beauty, and watch how people start saying, who are you doing that for? You're trying to impress other people? That's what an insecure person always loves to say. But people who believe in you and support you are, let me get on that too. Let me increase the standard out of my love and respect for you and the inspiration that I'm getting because of what you're doing. Let me increase my standards and let me join this party. See that? We almost, the world tells us, no, 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 keep all your dreams and all your intentions into yourself and just hide them and never put them out into the world as if you don't need support for them, because everybody's a hater and people are just going to hate on you and they're going to make you feel bad. But if you don't put them out, then you never know who genuinely has good intentions for you with what you care about and who doesn't have good intentions for you with what you care about. And the best part about sharing ideas that you care about with people, especially with toxic people, is you can let them kill those toxic ideas before you let them have a child with you, and then they actually destroy the life of the child that you have. This is why any person I get into a relationship with, which I probably won't because I think I'm going to be alone forever, but any person I get into a relationship with, we're getting a plan. And even better, I created a whole entire like connections and community building platform. And the whole like relationships, dating portion of it, it's gardening and planting because it's just supposed to reinforce how we are cultivating connections and cultivating relationships over the long term. We aren't just getting in relationships to claim somebody and then to hope that we can like keep being as hot and sexy and rich as we were when we got married. Like, you got to change your whole entire mindset when you really, really want to see different results, especially if you haven't seen them before in your life. Because the only thing that's the same about your life when you haven't seen the circumstances that you want after making the changes internally is just you not making any different decisions. Okay, now let's get into crafting the escape plan. Really, the only part of this slide that I needed to include is this top part right here. But again, we have a couple of little other things that you can add on there to support you in understanding what types of things you'll need to get. But the main thing is, dude, if you want to leave and you think you're going to leave and you're going to tell the narcissist that you have an intention of leaving as like a means of holding that over their head. No, no, no. You telling them that you might leave or them knowing that you have a potential of leaving has automatically put you in a position to now never leave again. Whether it's they actually do have to change, but not change to heal, like and grow, just change to better their manipulation and coercion. Whether it's they have to now actually block opportunities in your life, they have to start triangulating more people to gaslight you and manipulate you. But you don't, we don't tell. And again, this is why we go back here. This is why we go back here and we say, put your ideas out in front of the people around you to test how they feel and how they treat the energy that you care about. Now, mind you, a lot of people, they might say something like, oh, well, you don't ever finish anything. So, like, that's why we don't believe in you. Mind you, that could be true. And if that's true, that's something you got to put up with yourself. You can't just keep running away from shit and not finishing shit and then blaming people for not wanting to support you. But if you do, and the only reason why you can't finish is because you don't have support, then look to the people who are around you and should be supporting you. And if they aren't, I'm telling you, that's an issue. Because why? They don't like. But the main part about this slide, which we don't have to spend like 30 minutes on it, is you have to craft the plan in silence from those who, again, have already been corrupted by the narcissist to serve them. With if you're in a narcissistic family, it's probably like your uncles and aunts and maybe even cousins, maybe even your siblings have turned against you. So anybody who is their salvation comes from the main narc, the leader of the cult community. Anybody whose salvation comes from there, you need to make sure that you are not discussing about this. You share this with the support network that you're building to engage with or to endure the transitional phase, which could be a long time. Because if you've had your whole entire life sabotaged, like if you don't have your own bank account, if you don't have your own mailbox, if you don't have your own like health insurance, if you don't have your own job, I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot. Like you don't just leave a house and then find a homeless shelter and get housing. Like there is every bit of social welfare is backed the fuck up. And because of Donald Trump going in and just hating poor people, every bit of social welfare is probably going to be non-existent by the end of 2025. So you have to be beyond smart. I'm not saying that you have to be like a Harvard level student, but I'm saying that you have to be genuinely smart and strategic when it comes to this. If there's friends that you have like at school that you connect with, if it's friends that you go on a sports team with, you have to have these conversations low key, underground, and almost like prep the people in your life for these circumstances indirectly. And also prepping them as in like, oh, like some things aren't going good. It allows you to see who could be there for you and who can't be there for you if the situation snaps like that. Which that's another reason why I decided to make the platform that I made, because I think that dating apps have colonized our ability to even make connections and relationships, period. And sometimes we just need different types of peers and connect groups that can support us in the different aspects of our lives, whether it's because we didn't have a family, but we've moved to a new country, whether it's because we were in a relationship for 30 years and now we don't know how to connect with the community. It's because we grew up isolated or single or only child and don't know how to have friends. Connections are more important the more diversified they are. And it also spares us from putting all of our salvation into romantic relationships and thinking that there's no other connection that can be as valuable as that. Or even sacrificing those other non-intimate, non-romantic relationships the second we do have access to one in our lives because of how it makes us feel, rather than recognizing, hey, we need support beyond romance and good feelings. But again, if you fuck with that, go ahead, go on this YouTube and go check out the Tribal Eternal Melanin Oasis LLC. Go check that out. And if you're white and you're rich, go get me some funding. The next two steps that are going to be more important, but not like direct, are going to be getting ready to endure. Forgive me. Getting ready to endure all the nonsense that you're going to have to deal with. Because mind you, you leaving the narcissistic system is going to break the facade that probably is the happy family, the supportive, healthy community, the good people trope. And it's going to force people to question if that's real. And the first thing that narcissists do is what projects responsibility, especially when it comes to accountability. Accountability is not even a word in the psyche of a narcissist. That's called your fault. So you have to understand, even if you are right, this is something that I've had to endure, and it destroys my autistic brain because I just see things as like that's right and that's wrong, like very black and white, and I don't really like to dig into the gray area because I think people are really weird when it gets to the gray area shit. But understand that from the outside looking in, especially because the people who are going to smear campaign on you and talk down behind your name, they're doing that so they can get the first story out because they know how much harder it's going to be for you to try to defend yourself. One, as an individual, two, as somebody who left like their family or relationship, and three, as somebody who, again, is second to reporting the story and protecting their identity. And four, probably doesn't have any alibis because all of your connections have either been triangulated, corrupted by the narcissist, or you just don't have access to community. And you've been so isolated and so self-rejecting, you don't even know how to stand up for yourself against all of these people who miraculously know the truth that you don't know, which is you're a shitty person and you don't deserve any help or support while you're enduring this process that is actually like life-destroying and transformative. So I'm telling you right now, people that you thought cared about you, you're gonna see when you endure this type of process, like you're gonna see hell. You're gonna see demons come out of people that you used to think were angels, and you have to be ready to sit there and realize it's not necessarily that it is them, like the person. This is just who they are, a shit human being. And even for me, like I even have a little grace for narcissists in my life because I know for many of them, they're just traumatized inner children trying to like forcefully live as adults while maintaining control and like exploiting people. But you have to be willing to see like it's again, I described this in the first part, but it's almost like a hand of energy that goes behind their head and just digs through their brain and then is now speaking through you, and you're just a consequence or you're just a punishment of being able to line up with their rage, with their anger, and with all their animosity. And again, you're not only, when you leave a situation like this, you're potentially destroying the mask. Any potential of destroying the mask, any potential of destroying the facade that has been upheld by the narcissist or the cult community is automatically entitled to, not only deserving, entitled to punishment. So with that being said, there is no plan B. There literally is no plan B. And I'm not saying that you can't go, and I don't even want to call it going back because it's not going back, but it's not, there is no going back to who you were. And mind you, that's the only version that these people know you as, because if they let you grow into an independent or into just an adult human being, they would have seen the different versions of you, and you probably would have had a more stable psyche and self-concept. Rather than every year you grow up as an adult or you grow up physically, you are psychologically being infantilized more and more and more and more and shrunk into this small human that can't even speak and scream loud enough to be heard by like the average person. Figuratively, of course. And I don't want you taking there's no plan B as like you shouldn't go on this unless you're going to do it perfectly. I'm just saying, recognizing the fact that you can't go back to who you were and there's only going forward, you have to keep iterating plan A. If you don't know what that word means, just look it up. But I'll try to describe it in the best way I can. It's just adapting to whatever the needs are at the moment. We'll explain this a little bit more as we get further into this, but understand that we're not looking to go back to who we were, because if we try to go back and hide in that shell, one, we're going to decay with it, or two, we're just going to go back to find ourselves in the same types of connections with just new experiences of abuse, with new abusers. Rather than freeing ourselves from that type of self-concept, being able to actually participate in cultivating one that we can accommodate and we can get accommodations for, and then setting up the boundaries to protect that and reinforcing that we are deserving of protection and we are deserving of love and care for who we are. Not just throwing ourselves naked into the world just to get abused by people who are taking advantage of the vulnerable and the weak. But the final thing I have to say about this slide right here is that until you are ready to go and never come back. And I'm not saying when you're ready at that point to just like tell everybody like I'm never coming back, fuck you guys. It When you get to the point where you are ready to go and never come back, that is the only time it is safe to have your plans revealed. If you as much as tell the wrong person, as much as tell the wrong person, that I guarantee you will get triangulated and find its way back to the narcissist, and you will be, if not punished, you will be even more isolated, even more infantilized. To make sure that the chance of that doesn't even come up, not even the opportunity, the chance that the idea even comes up isn't even generated in your own brain. And one thing that the narc loves to do is that they love to hold excommunication over the cult or over the family as like the greatest fear, almost a fear greater than death. Because look, the only people that were supposed to support you and didn't, look, they're throwing you into the world with no support at all to be eaten by the wolves. And the fear of that, not only the fear of the unknown, but the fear of having nothing in a world that is literally dog eat dog, especially for people that don't have support networks, that is supposed to bring you deeper and deeper back into the community and to reinforce the fear that you have of disrespecting and disobeying the system that exists, that you have somehow miraculously been able to live off of. Over time, and this is the reason why I say, even here, the reason why I say you have to plan in silence and only be ready to like don't even reveal the plan ever unless you go. No, because I'm telling you right now, like, what is even the expectation that you have of revealing the plan to people that you're trying to run away from? Like, they're gonna be like, "You're right. I'm a piece of shit. You should leave before like I end up deleting you or something." You think they're gonna say that? Never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. The best thing that you can do though in this situation, mind you, because this is psychological warfare, is mask. And again, a lot of you, you're in circumstances to where you've been gaslit so much beyond the trauma, you're going to have to do a lot of psychological work front hand before even going, holy shit, like, this is not okay. This is not normal at all. And this is destroying my life. And I need to get up out of here. I was supposed to go somewhere else with that, but uh, set up your support network. Set up set up the contingency plan around yourself. And I'm telling you, when you get ready, this is what I was trying to say. This is damn near like jumping off a slave ship into the Atlantic Ocean. Not even knowing, not even knowing if there's island or a land around you, and not even knowing what those people are going to treat you like once you get there. But in this world, it's knowing that like that's just a figurative aspect of it. And in this world that we live in, you can jump off and there is land in a bunch of different places, but you've just been convinced to believe that there is no land out there. And that's why you're afraid of jumping. There's no land out there, and even if there is land out there, the devil exists there. And even actually, one part about this that I want to reinforce, or I want to just kind of shed a light on, is isn't it interesting that a support system that is not even a support system can make you afraid of the lack of support or being punished by a world that doesn't like takes advantage of vulnerable people, but they make you afraid by also not showing you support, as if you're not going to have to go at some point to go out into that world and get that support at some point because they're not going to give it to you. But oh, I'm sorry about that, guys. I was being an idiot. Oh my goodness, I unplugged my. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry about that. I was ADHD playing around with something I shouldn't have been. But yeah, I think we discussed this in as much as we could. It's just the every time that you think or you get exposed to have your escape plan, it's shrunken, 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 shrunken down, and you're forced to see this as the only salvation in a world that is getting increasingly bigger and scarier and more frightening. To hope that you never even feel like stepping out there will be anything that will ever support you as much as the shrivel of existence that you're having inside the narcissistic cult. Now, here's a kind of list of things that I figured out would assist you guys as awareness. Now, we're not going to get into every single one of them, but I believe that these guys will help you. These types of things will help you as it pertains to navigating through the transition that you're going to have to make. I think we already. I mean, dead honestly, I think we already discussed all this. So yeah, go ahead and just sit here and screenshot this if you'd like, because that's this is gonna a lot of this is gonna pertain as to like what is applying specifically to your situation. And I'm glad that we're doing lists here instead of just directly explaining every single thing and making this like a 45-hour lecture. Because I'll do I'll have like a little book a call situation or like consultations to where you can come with your specific circumstances and just ask me how what kind of steps I take to organize your circumstances to get to where you're trying to go. And again, this is for many of us, this is a process that takes 18 months, 3 years, 5 years. It's a very short term as it relates to the whole aspect of life. But if we can take this with intention, we can do this with some real focus, we're not going to have to be at the mercy of the foundation that we were given in this life. We're going to be at the mercy of the choices that we make in the life that we create. And that's where we're trying to get to, taking responsibility for what we have put out into this world, not the trauma that we were forced onto us. So remember, all of that pain is going to be happening behind you when you leave. It's not happening in front of you or next to you or around you anymore. It's happening behind you. You have to stay forward, eyes forward. If anything behind you was supporting you, then why would you take your eyes off it? Again, we whenever that inner critic of the narcissist wants to get inside of our brain and say, why are you making these decisions? We have to go tell it and purge it through having this kind of confrontation. But remember that we left because we didn't get support, and we're moving forward to do that, to support ourselves, to create that foundation. But fundamentally, I'm glad. I'm glad I wrote this here. You have to you you have to just, and again, there's no other way to say this, but you have to just stay strong. You have to surrender to whatever time it's gonna take. A lot of you guys, I'm hoping that for me, I'm in a bad situation. Like, um, I was just like, I didn't realize that I was like not only going through narcissistic abuse, but I didn't realize I was autistic too. And that has already made it like so like damn near infinitely impossible to have connections and friends and support. And I'm always like doing something wrong in somebody's life. And it's just, if I knew that, or at least I had like some kind of accommodation for that. All right, is this work again? All right. I'm sorry you guys had to endure that. It's just don't be poor. Don't be poor. You don't have to put up with bullshit. Sheesh. All right. But you have to remember, you're you're not just going on this journey for some like random reason, especially not for no validation of the world outside of you, because you got to realize that external validation, especially on a journey like this, is guaranteed to leave you. You have to decide that you're doing this for you and for whatever it is that was calling out for you to run in this way. And you said you're not just going to run, you're going to create a foundation to lay yourself upon and to grow upon, to plant yourself into for real. The second you stop living your life for the validation of the narcissist and you start creating that pace and creating that validation that is through the self, for the self, life is going to start to make a lot more sense. Especially the struggle and the suffering, because you're going to realize there's purpose to it and it's not just meaningless suffering. It's a lot of responsibility we have to take on this side of life, but the reason why we're taking that responsibility and we're cultivating this new life is so we don't find ourselves in connections that are bullshit, connections that don't reciprocate, connections that don't care about us as much as we care about ourselves and about the world. Now, we're going to quick stop here and we're going to get into section to be or not to be in a second over here. Let's get it. All right, now welcome back, but you've been here because this is still part of the same video, so thank you for staying. Now we're into the second part, not 2A, 2B, or not 2B, or 2A, 2-3. I don't know. I was trying to find a, I'm practicing my rhyming because I don't know if they don't let me be a political scientist or some kind of philosopher, I'm gonna have to be a rock star or some kind of R&B dude. So we're gonna have to get the rhymes right before that time comes. Now we're gonna get into the purge process. Again, this is not the same as the escape, and why do I say that? Just leaving is the first step. Not even the first step, it's the first decision. Meaning that you've just redirected your energy into a different direction. Now you have to go forth on the path. First, shedding what is blocking you from fully pursuing this journey. And second, creating the life on the other side of that knowing, or at least of the discovery of who you are, because that's the only place where you can really start to feed and invest off that intuition. You can't, this is an interesting perspective. You can't have intuition about a being that you are not, a mask that you are not, about validation that you are trying to receive that is coming from somebody other than yourself. That intuition comes from self-discovery, it comes from inner awareness, and it comes from accepting the calling from within and actualizing that outside of yourself at the mercy of sometimes being accepted by those on the outside. because that's what many people do, reject what is within to be accepted on the outside rather than following what is within and becoming everything that they can dream of on the outside. But we address that here, so don't worry about that at all. The point of this section right here is letting go of what we are not so we can finally create the space to become everything we have the potential to be. Very, very simple process here. It's going to feel like a simple process until you start crying and throwing up about all the shit that you went through and nobody wanted to help you for, and all the support that you're not receiving in your life, and how much you've done, and how much work you've done and investments you've put into this life, and nobody has given a fuck, and how much you just want somebody to be there and care for you and validate all that you've done. Hopefully we can take the time right now to pat you on the back and to thank you for being a stand-up individual and for pursuing the light side of this path rather than being a consequence of the darkness that you endured. Let's get into this here, huh? Starts off with us not only escaping, but cutting off those ties that have tied us back to the old life. That is what we can control. Part one is what we can control, cutting off the immediate attachments. Part two is what we can't control. It's everything else on the external, what we're releasing to the universe, to the world around us that loves us and cares for us to take care of, or at least bringing further down to us into our grasp to take control over. But we're not going to sit here and worry ourselves over what we can't control and what exists outside of our perception. We're going to trust that out there is a reflection of the energy and the intention that we are putting forth into this world. Now, from letting go, cutting off with our hands what is, or taking out from us with our hands what is not a part of us, what we don't love. And on top of that, being able to release from within us all that is connecting us, all that is making us, is reinforcing the trauma and the pain and the suffering from that old life. Now we can pursue this purging process, really, which is just describing it as a whole. What I believe the final part of the purging process is fully surrendering to authentic self-discovery, which again, most people, if not many, won't pursue this because to some extent, you have to be very wealthy to like not seek validation in this society. That's just like an issue with capitalism. And to keep like poor people focusing on things that absolutely don't mean anything rather than stacking up bread and creating a reality that they want to live in and then just incubating themselves in there. But we aren't actualizing ourselves for the sake of validation. We're appreciating the gifts that we can receive and the blessings and the abundance that comes as a consequence of it. But we aren't actualizing ourselves for the sake of other people's validation, because that means the second that validation stops coming, then we're going to stop pursuing this process. Or the second we finally got the validation of the people that are our ops or our enemies, are we just going to like change ourselves back to who we were because like now we finally got the revenge that we wanted and that's all that this was before? Or did we pursue this process to genuinely change our lives and wake up every day being able to invest ourselves in whatever journey the universe was going to throw at us that day? And to take process in crafting those bricks that we're going to stack day by day, brick by brick, building the lifestyle, building the kingdom, building the self-concept that we can take responsibility for. Because it's not building one that never loses or never gets punished or never gets traumatized again. We have to expect that with this human experience, especially with our very individualized, lonely culture. But how we can address that is by making sure that we can control what we can control in our circumstances and not projecting the responsibility over saving ourselves from that onto anybody else, because that means we have to wait for them to go into our lives and make those decisions for us. Or hopefully they inspire us to make those decisions rather than us choosing to do so and living a life on the consequence or on the back end of those decisions, and a life that has to change in alignment with that. But it's the fear of surrendering to a life that we can't control and a life that we're unfamiliar with that keeps a lot of us perpetuating our own trauma and not wanting to fully purge the self. Because when you go on this journey, I'm saying it again like the third time now, you have to fully surrender to who you are. Not a mask that you're trying to hold yourself up to, or an expectation you're trying to be to get a certain amount of validation. It's you now. You've not been given an opportunity to participate in the game, in the mask, the masquerade that is the social game. You've had your mask beat the fuck down. You have to now actually become something and turn that broken mask into something that's beautiful. And the only way that you can do that is by turning the light on within you and shining it through that broken glass. All right. Therapy is hope you guys don't down me for this, but when I get into like the philosophy lore aspect of this lecture series, healing session. I'm gonna get healing session tattooed on my forehead, right above my eyebrows. Healing session, or how about right under my mustache when I'm eating? Oh, that's where all my girls that like to get ate up. If you're a girl that likes to get ate up, put a bat in the chat for me. Put a cat in the chat for me. Actually, if you like to get that thing ate up, put a cat in the chat for me. But let's get back to the slum before I get canceled. The We live in a society that forcefully destroys conscious complementary communities in a multifaceted way. And that's as a means of individualizing not only healing, is as a means of what corporations can like turn each aspect of healing into industries, whether it's spirituality and religion, whether it's health and wellness, whether it's music and like frequencies. It's there's different aspects of healing that can be found and cultivated in unique structures by communities, are not for the sake of making one corporation turn this into an industry, dominate the industry, and then basically punish poor people for existing in that industry, selling them hopes of salvation while stealing their real money and resources in exchange for it. And then just trapping them into debt because that's the only thing that was ever given to the people who participate in it that aren't rich enough to live above debt. Because we have to make, under capitalism, we have to make money off of human rights instead of protecting human rights so people can make money and then stimulate the economy, because that's what healthy people do in a reality where maybe I'm getting forgive me, too political. Caring about people is too political in America 2025. All right, it's too soft, too snowflake. So without getting too deep into all of this, because again, this is what we're going to get very deep into, the colonization and corruption of a conscious community. But the problem is, one, the individualization of and privatization of healthcare, which is about to happen to the entirety of the federal government. So if you hated the American healthcare system, you're about to hate the entirety of the American government, because all of it is about to work exactly like healthcare is working right now. So if you thought Luigi Mangione and freaking what's his name, Batman, the guy that owned the CEO of United Healthcare, you thought that was going to be a one-off event, there's going to be at least 100 more of those. And if there isn't 100 more of those, there's going to be like some kind of ridiculous AI robot class that comes in and absolutely just like martial laws the people into complacency. But because that's called fear mongering on Mark Zuckerberg's TikTok, I just saved that for these lectures and my podcast. The main thing that I want to get into about this therapy never being enough, it's not only the individual. Oh my gosh, Haribo is owned by Fate. Oh, never mind. The main thing that I wanted to get into was, but not only the fact that healthcare is individualized, but also the fact that we live in a world where I'm trying to figure out a way to say this that's just not that's just not directly just racial. We live in a society where the masters of our society have decided that healthcare, at least to the poor's, is just fixing them to submit them to further perpetuate the system that is already properly functioning rather than healing those people to be of any type of like health, and then maybe having those people potentially running off on the plug or running off out of the community or potentially sabotaging the community because they recognize how corrupt it really is. So that's why I think a lot of, and for many of you guys, especially those of you who've had bad reactions to psychiatric medications, you guys, I'm telling you, you guys understand you're test subjects. You're test subjects and shareholders of these healthcare corporations are gambling on drugs. Like imagine a reality where instead of actually guaranteeing healthcare, you gamble on the profitability of drugs that may or may not help people, but the people who are taking these drugs and need assistance and help are experiment patients, are like being used as experiments to see if these drugs even work. But at no point are we actually like integrating medications and substances that are going to be used long term. We're simply putting stuff up to see what makes the biggest bag in quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. Healthcare is not healthcare under capitalism. And again, we can go back to section 1 and talk about the perpetuation of addiction by capitalism and the manufacturing, not only the perpetuation, the manufacturing of addiction and the need for addicts in a capitalist system, because you have to keep on convincing people to consume and to buy when there's no need in planet Earth to do so. Invertedly reinforcing infinite growth, infinite profit, which is an illusion because we live in a finite monetary system. There is not infinite growth because there's not infinite money. And the people who have the most money are just gouging the system. Just chicken, like I said this earlier, literally all wealthy people are doing are chicken choking the system because it's about power once you have a certain amount of money. It's got nothing to do with who has money and what they can buy because there's a price tag for everything. When you have a certain amount of money, it's about power and influence and making sure that you don't lose that. So you use that power and influence from the position that you're in to look down and to absolutely fuck up the system that poor people are dependent on for their livelihood to make sure that that doesn't fuck up the power and influence that you do have in this system. And then we create a society where instead of giving people access to therapy and community and actual like holistic aid and plant medicines, we're giving people petroleum pills to overdose on. We're making people like the Sackler family billionaires off starting an opioid crisis instead of giving people plant medicine. Because I don't know if studies are ready to show this yet, but do you know how many people have actually have found their way off of opiates and highly addictive hard drugs by taking cannabis and CBD? Oh, we're not going to have that conversation because we still align cannabis and CBD with heroin and crack on a Schedule 1 drug basis. And the only reason why we do that is because we haven't found a way to tax it so fucking heavily that we can make the federal government money off of that as if they're the actual drug dealers, while also ruining the drug while they sell it to people who are dumb enough to buy it at that tax rate. Healthcare is not an industry, one, and it's not a system that is supposed to be individualized industries that are gambling off of their consumers for the hope of healing and salvation. And then really just to reject all the people who can't afford access to healing in those ways and the other bullshit healing bird food methods that are sold in like Newport Beach or Palm Beach County. And then send all of those people where? To church. To deal with their overwhelming existential issues that they will not get help from, they will not get healing or salvation from, because we've decided to privatize healthcare and gamble on the lives and futures and well-beings of the people who create this society and uphold this system for the sake of capitalist profit that means nothing because it's just numbers in a bank account that will be taken out of the American economy to not pay taxes, to invest in a foreign bank account, to make this person even richer than God. And then let them come and leverage America as if this is some kind of Disneyland, of country club for the rich to play, the most dangerous game. sniping whoever they need to. But again, you guys get scared when I tell you that we're going back to masters and slaves in America. Um, but hopefully, once they start invalidating all of your like medication, like once RFK and these like non-healthcare professionals who are in charge of the healthcare department start invalidating all of your psychiatric medication, you're just in such a messed up mind state. You have to face reality for what it is. Before we leave this page right here, because I know that was kind of crazy, and I apologize for going deep on that, but we're going to keep on blaming the victims of this society until we realize that people are being forced to live on literal crumbs and air. And we've just been so individualized and so desensitized to a point where it only works because we don't care about each other. And if we did care about each other, we'd see how faulty this system is. And even worse, we'd see how quickly we are leading to the destruction of everything. But we're just, the convenience is stop caring about your neighbor, stop caring about the next person, stop caring about the person who's being victimized, stop caring about anything other than what's on your plate. And only look up from your plate when food stops being put on it. And that's why it's so difficult for us to address these issues collectively and mobilize to address them before they become too much. Let me drink some water. Sheesh. Okay. So I have the whole I'm almost 100% sure I have a whole YouTube video on this. And I also put this in No Land for Good Men. So if you want to check that out, you can go check that out. But if you're a marginalized person in America, your real trauma is being invalidated because our lives and our well-being sits beneath the level of significance that is the feelings of the white American. And mind you, that's gonna trigger a lot of people, but that's a fact. That's not even a theory. That's not even a theory. That's a fact. That's a fact. And I believe, personally, because we live in this society where white people believe that they're just entitled to power and privilege and then just not like authority over society, meaning that like they're just the most knowledgeable and logical people in every aspect of anything because everyone around them just must be an animal if they can't be as successful. They have a very bastardized way of going about healing. And I want to make sure that we, especially as marginalized people, are addressing their forms of healing because as long as we do this, then we can start saying, oh, okay, we can go our own way to heal and start to leverage our own holistic practices and start to build communities that are different than just these ones. And we can really start to see, hey, you don't have to project your healing onto like somebody coming to save you out of nowhere and like you not being able to take responsibility for your own circumstance. Like there is things you can do to change your circumstance, to change your life in a way that will also inevitably change your perspective and allow you to have different thoughts and make different decisions. So I'm going to just discuss these four right here to be real clear about it. The people who are accepted of this, like, because again, it's not all white people at the top of society who like make it above the need for like therapy and healing and like this. It's a very, very, very small percentage. So even the in group of people, even they are fighting amongst each other for the validation of the masters of their little collective or their community. But the people that are usually at the top of society, they reinforce their status and their power with religion more times than not because they don't want to validate that usually that money is either stolen through like ridiculous like globalized wealth exploitation or through immense oppression and abusive like warfare tactics. But it's nice. It's like a really, really nice way to think that it doesn't come from that when you just say that like God gave you all of that money. Or you just say that like in some book, somebody wrote at some random time that like an angel came to him and said that like we were supposed to have all this land and money and it's just entitled to us because of like our white skin. Some like stupid shit like that. And they actually believe it because if they didn't believe it, again, they would have to go back to seeing how they actually acquired that wealth and that power. And that would probably be so traumatizing that they would self destruct or they would be so insecure. They'd be like, I don't want to hold any of this blood money. And they'd have to start giving it to all the people they stole it from to a point where they just don't matter anymore. So that's why it's important to have a sedative like religion to get in and tell the people who have done all but right to destroy society in favor of their own well-being and their own reality, make them think that it was all necessary. Because if it's not right, it was necessary. And if it wasn't necessary, the victims deserved it. And if they didn't deserve it, you're lying. All right. And now how about the people that have to endure the reality aspect of like going through trauma and then attempting to address that? Again, this white supremacy thing, I'm begging us to address this because it's just it's one of the most like interesting collective forms of like group narcissism that I've ever seen in my life. And on a philosophical level, I really think it comes from like actually I don't even want to it almost like the philosophy that could come a philosophy the type of person that could create a philosophy to the level of white supremacy, it's alien. Like, I'm so sorry, bro. It's not just thinking about the philosophy, but like thinking about the type of people that can create that type of philosophy to make themselves feel how they want to be seen by just making shit up. That was made by people who were left here. Again, this is like a kind of apart from what I'm saying in this whole entire no contact narc. But that type of philosophy was made by people who were left on earth and abandoned by who their father or their master is and abandoned around a bunch of other people who already had shit going on. And these people wanted to be included, but they couldn't be included and had to destroy everything and humble everybody to serving them while they leverage feeding off of literally everybody else that they conquer while they wait for their master or their father to come back and save them. So you can call me crazy, but that validates their whole entire story, doesn't it? They came here, they got kicked out of whatever place they were in, and then now they're basically just waiting here, destroying everything until their dad comes back to save them and then destroy the rest of us. So I guess we're going to find out who's right sometime. But that's the religious psychosis that I had to get into. And now this next part, the bottom side, which will be the people that are not traditionally accepted by that religious or that like supremacist psychosis. These are the different ways that I've seen them go about try to heal. And a lot of this has come from like social media trends because these guys, especially white Americans, don't have their own culture. So they see what gets popular on like social media or the mainstream. And then a bunch of them just start copying that. And then they just keep copying like the next one until they hope to like create some kind of identity on the back end of that they can tie themselves to. Or at least find a community of other people that tag on like super fans in that same way. But the masculine side of that energy is it suppresses the need for healing. Before I even get into this part, I also want to remind you, when you have a supremacist cult that is destroying society or taking over the world and society, you have to realize that they think they are the most logical beings, even if they are the most ignorant. So the whole entire world will be at the mercy of their ignorance, even if the intelligence of the people that they conquered is more applicable and more efficient than the ignorance of the ruling class. But it's just the fact that the conqueror conquered and then instated their own control. Now we all have to submit to this shit, unless we choose to turn our attention to other aspects and other avenues that would reinforce like well-being for us. So it's not me saying like don't listen to white people or saying like white people don't know what they're talking about, but fundamentally we speak to our own people very differently than we speak to each other. And because of that, we have to have a stable sense of self and a independent sense of self to collaborate with other types of humans to learn how to engage collectively rather than having our self-sufficiency taken from us and then depending on them for salvation and then thinking that that salvation they give us, which is not what we had beforehand, is going to be anything like our own ability to be self-sufficient and to have our own salvation. So the alpha male masculine aspect of white American society, when they get overwhelmed by their emotions or by trauma, they just suppress it or reject it and invalidate it as if it's not there. And if that becomes too much, they just explode because that's exactly what happens, a ticking time bomb. There is no emotional regulation and there is no validation of the experience. So we're just waiting for the person on the inside or the volcano to explode and punish whoever's in proximity to that person rather than regulate. Next, for the more creative people, which I say like the white American feminine kind of likes to go down this route, uh, is the new age spiritual cults because it allows for the perfect amount of spiritual bypassing to not let these people think that white supremacy is a thing, but to also think that the reason why they're in the position that they're in is because of manifestation and law of attraction and all of this like cosmic astrological nonsense that like has been bastardized from other people's culture again. But again, it's picking and choosing what applies to get you to forget about the responsibility that is how you are in the position that you're in, a lot of warfare, bloodshed, and oppression, and why you have what you have. Picking and choosing why you have what you have. I attracted this. I manifested this. Not real. And again, I'm not saying it's not real because everybody has their own type of magic and spirituality. But for you in the Western world specifically, all you guys are just runaways from the church. And you still want to feel as if you are wise or you're spiritually intellectual or you're spiritually aware or aligned. So you join this type of situation because it again allows you to pick and choose what aspects of it you wear on your mask. And you have a handful of people that know how to dress like the earthy spiritual person. You have a handful of people that know how to say the words of the new age spiritual person. You have a handful of people that are so in tune with the aesthetic that they can present themselves to be a part of or knowing or awakened or enlightened. But genuinely, they're all using that to cover up the fact, to sedate themselves from the reality that they are uncomfortable with the real world that they live in, and they can't even address that. And how the hell can they provide you any salvation or any healing if they themselves aren't even willing to look at reality for what it is and the privilege that they have for the position that they're in to just wear other people's cultures as a fucking mask instead of actually doing the real work to heal and to grow and to realize that Earth is a family of different types of human beings and it is not meant to be dominated by one group of people because they have white skin and everybody else has colored skin. Shit. I didn't expect to get this angry when I was doing this, but it's just like I'm really tired of shit now. Like I'm really tired of shit now, bro. And y'all were about to have me go to school for freaking 10, 15 years to get all these certifications that mean absolutely nothing because the whole entire psychological field, again, like we were describing in part one, is just bastardized eugenics that's used to inadvertently validate white supremacy and the white supremacist anthropology that was created for hundreds of years before this to say that, oh, white people are superior, black people are animal savages, and everybody else is just some proximity of animal savage if they're not willing to fully submit themselves to white supremacist indoctrination and psychosis. So then many of us who do go because we have issues with our own mental health, we have issues with our own psychological understanding and awareness, we go to these Western treatment centers, Western hospitals to get treatment, throw them in a psych ward, throw them on medication, throw them in this medical debt, instead of actually addressing the problem. Oh, there's a housing crisis going on, and nobody's actually hiring for jobs. And there hasn't been an increase in the minimum wage since I don't know how long, and since before then, I don't think there ever was one. And there's actually absolutely no community because we've divided community based on internet cults, whether it's internet cults on social media or it's internet cults in these gaming universes, or it's just dating apps where people are just shuffling through each other to act like they want to go on dates, but people don't want to build any real connections. And mind you, we did that all at the same time where we were actively destroying or reducing access to the real world for poor people and gentrifying that same world. So the only people that can exist in the real world are people who are wealthy enough and privileged enough to exist in it. Because it's more than just whiteness now. It's just rich and poor. And we'll decide the racism on the back end of that. Now the final thing is, which I don't want to abandon, because I think this is a very important aspect, a very important piece of this type of community, and it's the lost child, the one that doesn't find themselves as even accepted in the rejects. Like they are simply just a reject of the rejects, whether it's like the punk kid or it's the what do you want to call it? Like the criminal even. It's just like the like not just the non-traditional person from the socially acceptable norm, the reject of the non-traditional of the norm. And more times than not, this kid expresses themselves in like very, very, very weird ways. And I say weird because like I don't know another way to describe it because it's just non like again, this is a consequence of the white supremacist psychosis not allowing for even white people to have conscious complementary communities. So the people who are rejected from their own families and their own communities, more times than not, are completely isolated in the world and at the mercy of whatever inspires them and whatever is like immediately influencing them and triggering that inspiration. But more times than not, the confused or like the inner the child that is still seeking themselves out, they they either completely abandon who they are to try and become somebody that they want to be, like Alabama Barker attempting to be a black woman. That may not apply. Or it's the the inability to maintain the emotions internally, and because of that, consequencing the world outside by raging out or rebelling from the conscious reality outside of it. But again, that rebellion, it it aligns with the same emotions that many of us marginalized people have. And I think that's why we can align with these people when we go protest in the streets or when we go to like a rock concert, like a punk concert or what's it? Or like a rap concert, and we're kind of like hearing that music and like that emotion. But you have to remember that these people like breaking shit just to break shit. Like not because like we're tearing shit down to like send a message or nothing. Like we're breaking shit just to break shit. And the more you can recognize how these people like express that rage and that rebellion and how they may be doing this. Now this is going to be a political conversation. They may do this and they may just be leveraging our political protest and like activism rallies as a means of getting themselves off in the rage area just to sabotage our real plight and our real struggle. Then we start transforming the way that we're organizing our communities and we organize ourselves, recognizing this is a potential to infiltrate our community. Something good will always be at the mercy of these people who then infiltrate because they don't feel included and then invalidate the fact that we need to lead it and then end up sabotaging it because they don't feel like they have control over it, or they feel like what's happening with the community will not fully serve the direction that they want to go with it. So these are all the modes of healing that the Western world and white America has decided to give people, other than just telling you to shut the fuck up and get back to work. This is why I even made No Land for Good Man. I'm telling you right now, this is literally why I made No Land for Good Man, because I'm telling you, like, the suicide rates in America are going to be so ridiculously insane, so ridiculously insane, because there's just no, like, there's nothing. There is, we are so far apart from community. I was just watching a Rolling Loud concert on YouTube last night. Freaking one of these rappers, Ken Carson. And I'm sitting here thinking, and this is after me watching a Britney Spears concert in 2000, and then me watching a Police concert from 1982 or some shit. And I'm sitting here seeing the we are literally living in the era where every single person now picks their phone up with their smelly ass armpit. Every single individual person picks their phone up and records a concert that we are all at. Instead of us showing up to the event to sing the songs and to enjoy the event. Like, and again, you guys might not see it the same way I see it, but it's all of us existing around each other. But the loneliness culture is the fact that we are all more and more and more reverting deeper into these sunken places that are our phones, reverting our attention, reverting our safety, reverting our energy, our realness into these things called our phones. And we are existing damn near our whole lives in them, like almost like funneling. Until the point is we used to be able to we used to watch the TV. We used to watch the TV like this. We used to watch the TV apart from our head, and now we stare at the phone all day. And the next step is just wearing goggles now that just never come off your head. And again, like this may act like this may sound like it doesn't apply, but the reason why I said America's natural resource other than the American dream is slavery is because the reason why we don't address the mental health issues and the mental health epidemic that has ensued as a consequence of the social media era and this whole Silicon Valley boom in America is because if we didn't win the .com boom, the quote unquote .com boom, if we did not win that as America, we would not be here today. I'm telling you, if we didn't win that .com boom, we would not be here today. Y'all better thank Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak for that too, though, because if we didn't have the iPhone, we would have been screwed. But as amazing as an invention, as amazing of a technology that was, we refuse to accept the fact as to how individualized that has made our society and how much more afraid and much more hostile people are in just peer-to-peer engagements and how much less respectful people are in community opportunities and engagements and respecting the importance of that and all the benefits that come from that for the sake of like just trying to maintain their own ability to meet their needs and like not worry about anything else. But before I leave here, because I just saw this orange part, which is very important, these people, when not forced to address like the privilege that they have from the position that they're in, since their whiteness like inherently puts them in this system above marginalized people, whether it's deserving of welfare or just from like a psychotic perspective, when they finally have to endure the reality that us marginalized people live in a daily basis because we are not them, more times than not, they're going to just reject living, like delete themselves. And if they don't take it upon themselves to do that or delete other people's children in some kind of like mass school event, they'll just go and revert themselves to be the greatest spokespeople and salespeople of the mainstream culture and religious ideology that they said that they claimed they had answers beyond. Or they claimed that, oh, I went the traditional route, but that's the matrix. I'll escape the matrix here. Like, I'll escape the matrix. I do it my own way. I'm still going off the grid. Like, no. All of you guys are still participating in this system. And the worst part is that you guys, more times than not, especially in the social media era, most people are just doing shit for the sake of trying to go viral. And if not try to go viral, they're just doing it for the sake of having the identity that appears to be this person. If most people guaranteed we're never going to get validation for the things they did, most people would do 3 things every day. That's it. They would not be acting like they do 25 things every single day and they have 10 girlfriends and they have 25 sports cars and all this type of nonsense, bro. It's all cat, bro. Let me take a little breather here. When I yap, I dehydrate myself. You can. I'm gonna DJ old people music. All right, now this is why we purge. Without the purge, the best thing that you're gonna do, the best thing that you can get done, is cover up a broken soul, and that's going to require you to keep on replacing the mask, or it's going to keep on lashing out and breaking that mask, forcing you to change it. Or it's going to, again, we're going the narcissist route. If you refuse to take responsibility for that and it keeps on breaking your mask, but you don't want to take responsibility for that either, the only next step is to cling on to other people and use them as supply to sustain yourself or the identity that you want to have reinforced without truly creating it on your own. We are purging because we aren't looking to cover up the soul anymore. We know that the light inside the soul is something that needs to be seen, and not only seen by the world, but it's essential. It's our inner sun that is going to give life to our inner universe, our inner world. And that's where our unique gifts come from, our own garden that is ourself, our being that we are cultivating, we are taking care of. We are purging because we are going into this garden and we are uprooting the weeds. We are taking out the soil that isn't good. We're taking the rocks out of our soil. We're making sure that we're putting fertilizer there. We're making sure that we're putting new, fresh seed in there. We're making sure that we're see again that's a whole process. For many of us, we've abandoned this, and it's damn near the garden that we're holding on. That is our soul is damn near a cemetery right now, and it's just a cemetery for our hopes and dreams and everything else that we believe, rather than a garden where we invest our ideas, we invest our dreams and our visions into, and we plant them and we give them life and we see what the world, how the world wants to support them outside of us. But we don't kill them inside of us. We let the world decide what they become and how they live. But you will you will find yourself constantly going back in loops to reinforce the identity that you are familiar with or comfortable with if you don't go through this purge process, because the purge process is supposed to be so difficult and really traumatizing to the point where you say, being on the other side of this now, I know I don't want to be on the front side of it because one, I don't want to endure the withdrawal and the purge again, but I don't want to go back to that person that I was, and knowing how much immensely more difficult the pain is from being that person and knowing that I don't deserve to be there and I don't deserve to put up with that type of bullshit. Again, I've said this before, but you can't purge yourself out of your body and then you're going to just sit here and be like, okay, like now there's nothing else left in me. Like, no, 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 no. We're release, 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 release. Because one, you've probably suppressed too much of yourself. And the only way we're going to rediscover ourselves is by turning the faucet back on and spitting out all of that musty, nasty water out of the spout. And then once we get all of the stuff that's been clogged in the spout out, now we can start cleaning everything. And now from cleaning everything, we can start making sure that that water that's coming through can come through as fresh as possible. But come through a spout that isn't clogged, it isn't dirty, it isn't destroyed, it isn't rusty. I love it. I love it. You're you're and This puts you on pace to become a person. Again, if you're not a neurodivergent person, you might not endure this, but like it at least creates the space if you're like an holistic or a neurotypical to just have and connect with healthier connections now because you're freeing yourself from the attachments and the energy that aligns you with certain types of people, which is huge. And if you're neurodivergent, it allows you to free yourself from the responsibility of this external world that is manipulating you and exploiting you and allowing you to dig within to that well that is full of water and that needs to be spread into the world to water your reality with, or full of paint to paint your reality with, like the canvas that it is. But we have to go within and tap. It's like it's like it's like hacking at a rock, trying like in the desert, trying to get water. But I wrote right here, you have to be willing to like damn near vomit up the negative energy. This isn't like, okay, I got a haircut and I just like kind of like I'm just taking off the skin, or I got sunburn and I'm just taking off like the dead skin. This is from within, from the depth of who you are, from and we don't even have to say the soul is just right in you, but from the heart, all the way in there, the most vulnerable aspect of your ability to feel. Imagine going, not abandoning your heart, but going and standing with your heart and then looking through those experiences that you've had, looking through those opportunities that you've been disrespected or you've been violated or you've been hurt and abandoned, and holding hands with your heart, literally holding hands with your heart through that process. And for whatever it feels, allowing yourself to feel that in the moment, because you aren't that person who is feeling those emotions necessarily. You're allowing those emotions that were suppressed and stored in like a Pandora's box to come through you so they can be in the world, because they were supposed to be released in that moment, but you never had the opportunity to do that. And they were supposed to be validated by the people around you from that moment, but they probably invalidated them, which pushed even further down. But being able to go on this process reminds you that you are not just a human being who has dry eyes. Like, that's somebody that I thought I was, but I didn't realize it's because I had stopped myself from even being able to feel the emotions for so long. Not realizing that in letting myself feel, I was going to have to surrender to the tears, to the crying, to the again throwing up, to the screaming, to the raging. But if I was willing to love myself enough beyond everything, for everything that I could feel, then I was going to give myself that opportunity. Because that's literally where my humanity is. And I was protecting myself from my own humanity as a means of not, whether it's being seen as like a weak person in the world or just not being at the mercy of emotions that I didn't feel like I could overcome. And this is why I'll also speak about, at some point during this, I'm speaking about having a strong foundation, like a transitional foundation while you're doing this purge process, because you're like, you're not just going to like be able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, okay, go to the time where I was 6 years old and I got traumatized in this way. Like, you're not going to be able to just look at yourself and do that. Your body has, especially when you've suppressed trauma, your body has to wait for yourself to be in a like a healthy position or just a decent position, and then it's going to go back there where it feels safe enough in the now to go into the past and dig some bullshit up, because it feels like, okay, now even if this overwhelms me, at least I'm safe enough in this position to come back from it and to address it. But if I don't address it, I'm just going to keep on sending it back to the ether, and it's going to keep on getting sent back to me stronger and stronger and stronger. And if I keep rejecting it at times where I can control it, I promise you it is going to affect you and destroy circumstances when you least want them to show up. That's just how energy works. Because if you're not going to focus on the energy when it's trying to call out to you directly, just one on one, it is going to call out to you in front of everybody. And then you'll have to focus on addressing that, because it'll probably sabotage the thing that you're distracting yourself with to avoid addressing that. And this isn't like the devil or like God punishing you or nothing. This is just how energy works, personally, that I believe, especially suppressed energy, because Many of us are suppressing energy for the sake of protecting a mask that we're wearing to be validated by society, not even to be authentic in reality. And once you start separating society's expectations versus realities like existence, you're going to be like, holy shit, like we're living in a fucking hellhole. Like this is just freaking trauma land. But getting down here, you can screenshot this if you want to read that. The more you suppress these emotions, you send them as like seeds into your Pandora's box. But the longer that you leave them there and you abandon these experiences and validating them and healing through them, the greater they become, and the more ferocious, the more scary they appear to you. And the more that you release them, it's weird. The more you are willing to just address these things in real time, the easier it is for you or the harder it is for them to come back around and punish you at a time where you don't need them. But the more you reject them, it's like they're on standby and they're waiting to compete with you. They're waiting to build themselves up to where they can be strong enough to then finally be seen by you, literally like an abandoned child. But again, these energies, they're not like demons coming to attack you or coming to sabotage you. It's you. These are aspects of you that you have abandoned. This is your truth. This is your reality that has been rejected. And you are trying to meet up with you in this reality where everything is going on and trying to make peace with you. But you are so afraid of you because you know that you are going to have to look yourself in the mirror when you have that confrontation. And you don't know how you're going to respond when that happens. Again, the crying, screaming, praying, creating, expressing, throwing up, all that. And I think a lot of us, especially those of us who've gone through these type of like generational curses, like narcissistic abuse, a lot of us would realize the strength that we are looking for, especially the strength that we're looking for to be validated by the world. We would actually be awakened to it within our own lives, in our own experience, if we just decided to take responsibility for the circumstances that have been forced upon us. If we took responsibility to face our own demons, if we took responsibility to change our circumstances, to change our habits, to change the routines, to develop a completely different belief system, to put ourselves and put a different foot forward every day in the universe. So right now, it's just, life is so much different. And I want you to address these types of emotions, to address these experiences in your life, because I want you to leverage the strength of your emotions to help assist you in cultivating and creating and changing a life to your desire, rather than being at the mercy of or consequenced by these emotions you refuse to take responsibility for because you think it's some other person than yourself giving them to you. All of these little emotions calling out to you, it's all traumatized versions of yourself. It's all abandoned versions of yourself. It's all aspects of you that want to be seen and loved and cared for by you. But if you're somebody who hasn't even felt that for yourself, it's going to be very, very difficult to create the space or to even give the time to give yourself that level of attention and respect. So this is why it's important for us to realize we're on it. It's the connections that we keep and the relationships that we have are very important. So that's all I'll leave it at. Nah, I don't have to get too deep in. This is like an hour long. Oh, 45 minutes. It's not too bad. Oh, the worst part is that freaking this haircut. This dude that freaking cut my hair literally cut like a Bobby Brown freaking haircut into my shit and just fried like a corner of my freaking head. Bro, I was so mad, bro. You don't understand, bro. I was so mad. Oh my gosh, bro. And then he wait 2 hours, bro. 2.5 hours for a haircut, bro. And the dude fucked my shit up. Oh, bro, I almost blew up. But I'm about to get a haircut tomorrow, bro, and that's gonna change. That's gonna transform a lot of shit. So, but to get back to the most important part before I get kicked out of this room is don't ever fall for the trap that you have to just be a lone wolf forever. You're on solitude on your own when leaving that circumstance, because solitude is necessary when we're addressing those deep aspects of ourselves. Solitude is necessary when we're very dysregulated and we need time to calm down and to regulate. Solitude is necessary when we feel like we are too much at the mercy of the decisions other people are making and we aren't contributing to the decisions that we're being consequenced by. But if we sit there and isolate ourselves and prevent ourselves from being at the mercy of the world that still wants to participate in the life that we're creating, we will completely be at the mercy of the ideas that we have or the psychosis that we're at, rather than being able to ground our brain into the real world and then apply our brain and our ideas and our dreams into that same real world that we live in, rather than being fully in the clouds with the amazing ideas that we have, even if those ideas, many of which are not applicable in the real world, meaning that we're just mentally masturbating over absolutely nothing. Because really, we're still in solitude, especially if we have something to share with the world or we have something to accept and to love about ourselves. The only reason we're in solitude is because we're afraid. We're afraid of being traumatized again. We're afraid of being isolated. We're afraid of being rejected. We're afraid of other people. But it's very important that, especially as somebody who likes, especially as an introvert, you find, even if it's other introverts that you like to exist with, or people that you see even just once a month, but you need to be able to take these dreams and the ideas you have, especially coming out of a cult community or a narcissistic situation, and be able to bring your ideas and ground it into a real reality. And then now from that grounded reality, we can start being creative with it rather than continuing to exist in this limbo and this lack of foundation and like self-sufficiency throughout our whole lives, just constantly being at the mercy of whoever is smart enough to take advantage of us. So remember, solitude is necessary in short sprints. It's very important because for many people, they get into solitude so deep, and especially when they have money or they're a little bit successful, they forget that, like, they think that the only person they're doing it for is themselves because they work alone, they work out alone, they jerk off alone. They not playing, but they do so much stuff alone that their whole entire they start to create a lifestyle where they're only winning for themselves as well, rather than being able to engage in a community and to access the support that comes with that and the appreciation that comes with that, to engage with peers and to see what types of relationships you can create with them. We have to make sure that we aren't falling victim to this social media psychosis that is just like people sitting in their room talking shit through their phones, listening to a bunch of nonsense that's being told through a bunch of other people sitting in their room saying stuff, but nobody really going into the world and putting their ideas out there and testing to see, hey, that thing that I was thinking about people or about those type of people or about that group of people was real stupid. And the only reason why I was able to think like that is because I was incubating my ideas and my ignorance in my head, in my psychosis, and not putting it into the world. Another good analogy for this is the person who claims to be like a creative artist, like a musician, but they're not releasing music. They're not in the studio. They're not doing any shows because they haven't found the perfect show, or they don't like going into the studio this many days, or they don't this, or they don't like, nigga. I even say it like that, but it's, you're afraid that when you leave solitude and you really start to stand on business and present this into the world is going to reinforce that you aren't this person that you claim to be. And you're going to finally internalize that, and then you're just going to become whoever the world wants you to be to gain their validation and the acceptance that comes with that, rather than forcing the world to accept you as who you are. And going back into solitude and refining what direction you're going, what production level you have, what kind of way you're going to address this, and then doing so. But again, if you spent your whole entire time in solitude and you never knew that the world doesn't see you the same way you see you, then how would you ever know that maybe you have to pivot into a different path that is more authentic to how you want to live and who you want to be. You never would, because you'd constantly be in that limbo of, well, I want to do these things, but I haven't done anything. So now I'm just waiting to find somebody to blame as to why my life hasn't changed, even though I haven't. It's very important to never get stuck in the hopelessness that is, I'm not going to make any more connections. And okay, now going back to narcissistic relationships. See me drinking my cosmic nomad juice. Now as this goes back, which I already forgot, the cosmic nomad juice made me forget my train of thought. Forgive me for that. What I was gonna say was good, so hopefully you just I just stare you deep enough into your eyes and you just know exactly what I'm talking about. Let me try to remember it. Um, Solitude. Not talking about the artist. We're talking about how it applies to relationships now. Okay, the important part is to not isolate yourself, because I understand I did this too. And this is where I went wrong, because I stopped myself from being able to make connections that probably could have helped me way before I'm in this position right now where I'm barely struggling, scrapping for everything that I got. But what I see now is you have to always be willing to, even if you're not ready, to put yourself out there and to make new connections. Even if you're afraid that they may be more narcissists, you have to be willing to put yourself out there, make those connections, to fail in relationships, to high and buy people, to like you have to be willing to go out there and to experience the real world. Because I'm telling you, you might real when you experience the world enough, and I've spent like probably every day outside for the past like 9 months, not like all day, but I've spent like every day for the past like 9 months in some way, shape, or form outside, like making sure that I'm getting some oxygen. And I'm realizing, like, yeah, a lot of my the pain that I experienced post leaving narcissism and narcissistic abuse was not being able to force my ideas and my psychosis into reality, so the reality outside of me can tell me, dude, that's not how the world works. That's just how your trauma made you feel and how your trauma conditioned you to think. And you have to keep on basically telling us and being vulnerable and sharing this stuff so you can connect with people to, one, reinforce that that's, psychosis, and two, connect with people who are also healing so you can find out what steps and perspectives to take and assume that will help you in your growth process. So I'm glad, and I hope this video allows us to build our own, not just like the one narcissistic healing community, but it allows us to, one, heal collectively from this healing session, but even better, to start and hopefully leveraging that the app that I'm creating, Tribal, to build those connections and to integrate ourselves into the communities that we feel included and appreciated in, because that's going to do so much more for us than trying to like pay for ads to get like a million more Instagram followers and feel like those people give a fuck about it. So I'm telling you, more times than not, they don't. Now, one of my favorite parts. One of my favorite parts. And this is just going to be. I could have included this in the next section, which is rebirth, but I just included it right here at the end of Purge, because this is telling you now, what kind of focus will we have for healing if therapy just won't be enough on its own? And even better than that, what kind of aspects are we going to focus on for our life in a fundamental level as a means of making sure that we can be creative, have the freedom of being creative around our life, but making sure that that creativity is rooted in a foundation of focusing on the things that are very important, the pillars of importance in our humanity, to make sure that we're always respecting that with the nuances and the experiences of life that we're going to come and change us anyway. So to heal, I believe that healing it's we're not only looking to heal from the trauma that happened in the past to clear our plate for the present as a means of like welcoming in the future. I think we have to look at all those aspects together as one just constant thing happening, and you just happen to be living in the present moment at all times. But the past, the present, and the future are all constantly existing. But to narrow that down as it applies to the individual, we're going to leverage therapy and professional mental health support. Again, mind you, I know I just had a whole entire hit piece on Western psychology, but I'm not going to be the person that tells you to abandon that. There are great people there. You might have to do a handful of work searching for a good therapist, searching for a good psychiatrist, but there are amazing people in there that genuinely want to help you and want to be there for you. Make sure you are utilizing the resources that you have access to, especially if you're under 26 and you're still on your parents' health insurance. Leverage that. You please try to find like low cost to free ones. I don't believe you should be paying 400, 500, 600 bucks for therapy because they're not going to tell you anything in there that's worth that much money. But they will give you the support system and the third party perspective that'll be very helpful in making a transition as big as this one. So we're going to leverage to understand our past and to have that third party perspective. We are going to leverage therapy. And if there's medications that come with that too. But from there, we will also do research on our own genetic predisposition and our own, like the generational curses that may affect our bloodline, because that is something that a traditional healthcare system can't do for us. That is something that we have to go in our own lineage and our own heritage to dig up. And from then now, those are personal, energetic responsibilities that we can choose to uphold and to heal from, because those are things we may be medicating ourselves or getting medication from to deal with, even though that medication is not going to help us genuinely. Just being cognizant as to how are we treating ourselves and how are we accommodating ourselves. But understanding that the past is going to be a lot more third party group understanding support and addressing the past that can't be controlled, we can only be aware of as a means of making different decisions in our present moment. That is personal and community reinforcement in our present moment as a means of bringing in a new future or aligning with a new future that is beyond the destiny that was already cut out for us with our current or our prior circumstances. And you see here I say self-concept and family tribal. You can't only have yourself to develop a self-concept, because then you're only learning how to serve the needs of a self. It's very important to have more than just, and not just one type of family, but a collective of tribal communities, especially as an adult who knows the type of person you want to be and understands you have to engage in an ecosystem of the communities that will support you in understanding how to become that and what it takes to even become that. So for the present day, we're making sure that our self-concept, we're taking responsibility for what we can control in our own life, and our environment and reinforcement externally is also helping us get to there. And if it's not, we're replacing those people with a network of people who can help us. Because again, I'm not just saying like, okay, I want to be a rock star, I'm going to cut off all my family members because like they all suck and they don't believe in my music. Because you might genuinely suck at making music. But when it's detrimental to your well-being and your humanity, that's when we can start making those existential decisions. Again, when I put the app Tribal out, like, and again, you can go, I'm not just giving ideas out. Go ahead and look, there's like a 10-hour lecture I already did on that. So go check that out. Every single time I reference Tribal, you just go ahead and look at that lecture. You're going to be like, holy shit, this is it. Let's get in it. Now, this is going to be a lot more at the mercy of the community. This is going to have a lot more to do with the spirituality and the spiritual practice that you commit to, the community that you commit to, and the culture that you're a part of. But I believe that we can't project ourselves into the future as a means of seeing the future. I believe that we understand the present moment, and from our ability to feel through the present moment deep enough, our intuition can connect us to the future. And I believe that not only that, but there's, again, one, there's people who are connected deeper than others on like a psychic metaphysical sense. But on top of that, I believe that astrology and spiritual science are a lot more complex and a lot more real than a majority of our mainstream religions that are going around. But it's because it's a lot more easier to sedate and control people with mainstream religion than it is to tell people that they are a part of this grand mystery that is the universe, that is just so amazing and so full of new types of life and humanity and expressions. But you can't hate people to enjoy that or to appreciate that. You have to love people. You have to love the world. You have to love diversity. You have to care about humanity and goodness and greatness. And a lot of us on earth don't have that. We've been so desensitized by warfare and by consumerism and by just like fear and self hatred that we don't appreciate the metaphysical aspect of our reality. We don't appreciate the gifts of our ancestors. We don't appreciate the gifts of spirituality that exist beyond Christianity or exist beyond traditional mainstream like religious monopolies. Because it's funny how there's no mainstream religion that's like led by a woman god, right? 50% of this earth is woman, and there's like the no woman god. Like, you guys sit here and be like, get the fuck out of here, bro. I'm sorry, bro. This aspect right here should reinforce that healing is a multi-step process, not only a multi-step, but it's a multi-phase ecosystem, not a multi-phase, a multifaceted ecosystem. And it is to genuinely cultivate the healing and the growth that you want on a daily basis. It'd be a lot more easy, a lot more efficient to have systems around you that support in that sense and support the growth that you desire and also want to adapt in the ways that you are adapting and growing, rather than attempting to pay a therapist to give you healing, pay a doctor to give you drugs, pay a sex worker to give you Yes, I believe that is therapy. Yes, I believe that is healing. Yes, I believe that sex is a part of spirituality. And yes, I believe that the church has tried to monopolize sex and sexuality as a means of population control. But that's a conversation we can have on the podcast. Next, we're going to get into this, like phase 2 and 3, a lot more in my self-concept series, which will come after I drop this and probably go on like a 6-week hiatus, hopefully with a whole lot of marijuana and a pretty little marijuana, a pretty little Mary Jane next to me. But fundamental pillars that we could focus on for our own personal development as a means of not just healing, but healing and growing. We'll be focusing on our, like, Dark Wizard loves 3: mind, body, soul. And then as a reflection of that, on like the mind, body, soul will be the inner aspect, our inner universe that we're taking care of. And then the family or our tribe, our business, our career, our purpose, and our community and culture, that will be the externals, the external expressed version of what I believe is your internal expression, your soul, that will align you with the community and the culture that you participate in externally. Your body, how you engage with labor and productivity, that will decide what type of career you have. And I'm not just saying like construction or carpentry. You can leverage your body in a handful of different ways. Again, think about sex work. It's the way we are aware of and understand our body. That's how it goes. Now, next, the mind. You may not understand why a mind relates to family, but one, it's for reinforcement of the mind and the self-concept. But two, it's because the brain is the organizer, is the project manager of the whole body. And I believe that it's the brain is the organizer of the ecosystem that is the body. And just like the family is the or at least the whoever the leaders of the family are, the organizers of the children of the family. And that's how you learn how to organize and how to respect and how to reinforce your individual self on just like a self to self basis. and also because the mind is the structure, like the leading like creator of infrastructure, and the family is basically like the infrastructure of the community. So, hello, hello, we have finally made it through our purge, escape, and purge process. I want to thank you guys for being here. I want to appreciate you guys for deciding that I'm somebody that you should listen to as it pertains to this type of information. And, I'm sending you well wishes on your healing journey. There isn't too much I can do other than pray for blessings and protection that you see the life that you want to see. And even if you, I'm telling you, even if you only smell it, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that that thing is real. And as a means of not only creating this course, but being on the other side of just throwing my whole entire self into the fire, just knowing that the only thing that I was hoping for was myself and the life that I want to live on the other side of that. I'm starting to see that there's literally nothing else I want to do. Like there is no drug, there is no amount of sex, there is no like amount of money even that can sedate me away from actualizing my dreams and from living a life, living on the other side of actualizing those dreams. So hopefully with these courses we put not it's not just putting myself in a position, but we're putting each other in a position to make sure that we can validate those and really pursue everything that we came to this earth to do. Because we didn't. That's my phone telling me to shut up. So again, if you'd like to support the channel, go ahead and check out Cosmic Nomads Rebel Souls.shop. If not, I love you anyways. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, do everything you got to do to get this thing going through the algorithm because you know how YouTube hates black people. But other than that, thank you for being here. Thank you for being such a humble, such a respectful student. Thank you for not interrupting my class. Thank you for not getting stoned inside. If you think I'm cute, you want to have sex, go hit me on my Instagram. I'll catch you later.